Hello and welcome back. Today I'd like to talk a little bit more about the writing habits of highly successful researchers. And I particularly want to focus here on habit number 5, which is to be nice to your reviewers. Now, obviously this habit by itself is not enough. I'm not going to tell you to only be nice to your reviewers and do garbage research and you're okay. No. Your research is still the most important. Your English is very important, but there's a third thing you should think about also, and that is that there are two humans who will make a decision about whether to publish you or not. And these humans often have human motivations. They can get upset if you are not polite to them. They can recommend rejection of your work if you make them angry, and this may even be subconscious because we're humans. They may be influenced to recommend rejection if you make them unhappy with you. Now, there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, don't say mean things about them. Be nice, be polite. And second, say nice things about them. I'm going to talk about how you can do this in a practical way. Now, first, let's talk about where your reviewers come from. Your reviewers often come from the references in your own paper. You see, your editor is very busy and he doesn't have enough time to deeply research your topic and find a reviewer, so he will often trust you to find your own reviewers. He'll look at the end of your paper and he'll assume that the authors that you cite are very related to your topic, and he'll begin by asking those authors in your references to be your reviewers. So when you cite someone in your paper, you now basically give him a chance to become your reviewer. Here's a quotation from an editor. He says, "I think the author knows his subject better than I do. I usually use his references to find a suitable reviewer." So the key point here is don't emphasize the importance of your research by putting down on your references in your paper. Sometimes I read papers from students and they will begin like this. They'll say, "Smith's model was stupid and Johnson was an idiot, but my wonderful model will save the world." This is not the way to begin, because Smith might be reviewer 1 and Johnson reviewer 2, and you don't like them, now they don't like you, and you have created a situation where they may recommend rejection. Here are some examples of possibly offensive citation. This might make one of your reviewers unhappy with you. "The deficiency of Smith's approach is, the problems with Smith's papers are, a serious weakness with Smith's argument, however, is that. The key problem with Smith's explanation is that it seems that Smith's understanding of the X framework is questionable." This means Smith is a little bit stupid. Now, even if this is true, you should be very careful about how you comment on the deficiencies and the flaws of other work. In fact, rather than say fatal flaw and critical deficiency, try to find a more polite way to talk about it. Rather than emphasizing how he failed and you succeeded, talk about how you're extending his work. That's a nice way to say it. Or that you and he are talking about different problems and therefore needed a different approach. Be polite as you can. Here are some examples of maybe a better or safer way to cite. "Smith's model was effective in the X problem, however in Y." Okay, here I'm not saying that he's stupid and I'm smart, but that we have different problems and therefore we use different models. Or "The X benefit of Smith's approach are not applicable to Y." All right, he had a benefit, but I could not apply it. Again, more polite than talking about his flaws and deficiency and errors in his own paper. Now, if you don't believe me that reviewers are sensitive, I want to share with you a reviewer comment from my writing lab class several years ago. A student received this comment from a reviewer. The reviewer says, "I don't think you treated Smith fairly in your literature review. His insights deserve more respect." Now, who was the reviewer? Well, Smith was the reviewer, and he didn't like how we were citing him in our paper. And so he asked us to change the way we cited him. We did, and he was satisfied, and we ended up publishing. But this goes to show you that sometimes reviewers are more sensitive than we think. It's natural. They've spent years working on their research. Their research is their baby. You don't love their baby? Now they're going to think about ways to criticize you too. Even subconsciously, this might work. Now again, don't just say nice things about papers that you disagree with, but whenever possible, be polite and nice when you're distinguishing between the results you have and his results, or his model and your model. In fact, let me go one step further. Try to say something nice about reviewers, references in your paper. Rather than talking about their deficiencies, their flaws, talk about the benefit in their work that allowed you to benefit in your work. Talk about how their work was fundamental for yours. They're going to love that. Talk about, because that's a very positive citation, it's a very positive reference for him. He's going to want to see your paper published because that work complements him and extends his own work in a very positive way. So again, this takes maybe 1% of your paper, less than 1% of your paper, but this is the most important 1% of your paper to that reviewer, because this is the part of your paper that talks about him and talks about his work. So be conscious of it. Be polite when you cite other authors. Well, that's all that I have for you today. For more information, visit my blog, editing.tw/blog, and you'll see a lot of articles that we've already published on how Chinese scholars can publish more in international journals. In addition, I have a company that revises and translates Chinese papers, and you can visit us at editing.tw. We have a site, company right here in Taipei, and we can pick up the phone and talk to you as well about any questions that you may have. And our editors can also write comments in your paper that will help you to improve the flow, not only of your English, but of other things as well. So for more information, please visit our site, which is editing.tw. Thanks for joining us.